Hello everyone. I apologize for the background today, but I've been doing a lot of thinking about the coronavirus, the virus that has so turned our lives upside down. We all know how it's affected us. For instance, we've had to wash our hands all the time, constantly use hand sanitizer, and wear a mask whenever we go out. It's interrupted our daily routines, made us invent new ways to pass the time, interfered with things we usually enjoy, and changed the way we celebrate. It's even made some of us go a little crazy. But today, we may be able to do something about it. No, we don't have a vaccine that's quite ready just yet for mass deployment or an antiviral medication, but we can destroy the virus in 3D. That's right, we can use Blender to get our frustrations out on this virus in a 3D virtual world, and we're gonna do that in the next assignment. But before we do that, I thought I should go over a few things just to make sure we remember how to do everything we've learned so far, because it's been a little while since we've used Blender. So if we open a new file and we have the default cube here highlighted in orangey yellow, we can press X to delete the cube and send it off to cube heaven. And we can add a shape by pressing Shift A, and usually we add a mesh. We've also added text in the first assignment. We will be getting into adding a light in a later assignment, but for now we're going to stick with mesh. And don't forget that meshes are really 3D shapes with a couple of 2D surfaces thrown in. We have a plane and a circle, both of which are 2D shapes, but the rest of them are 3D. We're going to add a cylinder because that's what we will use in our next assignment. And don't forget that the keyboard shortcuts usually are the first letter of the operation that you're trying to do. So Shift A is add, right? There's also G for grab if we want to move it around, and S for scale if we want to grow it or shrink the object. And don't forget too that we have to make sure that when we use the keyboard shortcuts that our mouse, our cursor here, is in the 3D view window, the main window, our main work area. If it's over here in the outliner window or in the properties window, if I press Shift A, nothing happens. It won't behave as expected. You may do something unexpected in one of these windows. We talked about avoiding using the mouse. So for instance, if I press G for grab and move it, I can use the mouse to move things around, but if I try to move this along the green line, which is the Y axis, we will find that if I try to set it on that line, and if I move my view around, it won't be exactly where I thought it was, because Blender is really trying to project a 3D world in a 2D surface, and it doesn't quite get it right all the time. It does things that are unexpected. So a better way to do that, and don't forget that by pressing Control Z or Z if you're in the US, that takes it back. It undoes the last operation, and it will keep going back until you last saved the file. If you want to bring it ahead in operation, if you want to redo an operation, it's Control Shift Z or Z, right? But in this case, I want to bring it back to the center. And if I press G for grab and I specify the dimension, in this case Y, right? Now it's constrained to move along just this dimension, and I can even get more precise by typing in a number exactly. So if I type in 10, it moves it 10 of these squares over to the right, and you can see how many squares it's moving by looking up here. If I chose -10, if I pressed the negative sign, then it moves it to the left, right? And if I can actually change it from positive to negative just by pressing the negative, the minus sign on your keyboard. And after you're finished, you press enter. And now if I look at my cylinder, it's exactly where I thought it was going to be. It moved exactly along that path. And don't forget too, when you're moving things around, I remember showing you this, you use the scroll wheel as a button. So you press the wheel down, you push the button, you push the wheel in, and you move your mouse around, and you'll get this effect. I'm using my 2 fingers because I have a laptop. And also if you zoom using your mouse wheel. I pinch and zoom because again, I'm using a trackpad, but it's the same effect. If you ever move something so far out of place that you can't find it anymore, then you can press Shift C for center, and that will bring it right back to the center. That will also put your 3D cursor back in the origin, which is where all the new objects go when you add them. So that's kind of important. That's a handy feature to have. So I've shown you grab. Another thing I can review is if you want to shrink or grow something, if you want to change its size, you use S for scale, right? And again, you can use the mouse, but I don't recommend it. What I usually do is I press a numerical value such as 2 if I want it twice as big, or if I want to shrink something, make it smaller, I can use a number between 0 and 1, a number less than 1, but of course bigger than 0. So for instance, if I want to scale something, S for scale, 0.5, so half, right? That makes it half as big. And now I have to zoom in. I press enter, right? And I have to zoom in to see it. The other thing I want to show you, after I undo that, is of course you can scale something along a particular dimension. So for instance, if we want to scale it along the up and down dimension, we press S, then Z, and then let's say 2 for twice as big along the up and down dimension, the Z dimension. The other thing we can do is we can rotate this, we can turn it around a particular axis. I haven't shown you that yet, but that's good to know for this assignment. So if we press R for rotate, I usually like to select an index first. So if I want to rotate it around the green line here, which is the Y axis, I press Y. And again, I could spin it around with my mouse, but I want to make it exactly a quarter of a turn. Well, what do I press? Remember that there are 360 degrees in a full turn in one circle. So if I want to do half a turn, half a circle, a semicircle, would be 180 degrees, which is 360 divided by 2. If I want to do a quarter turn, that's 90 degrees, right? So I'm going to say 90 for 90 degrees, hit enter, and there's my quarter turn. It's helpful sometimes to think of it as spinning around an axis like the Earth spins around its poles, right? So if I wanted it to spin like the Earth does, if we imagine the Earth spinning around its axis, which is roughly vertical, for the sake of argument, that would be like the Z axis, right? So in this case, we have a cylinder that's laying flat, that's horizontal, and we want to spin it this way, right? If you have to press R for rotate, Z to specify the up and down axis, and now we can rotate it like the Earth would rotate around its axis. And we can also type in 90 degrees and make it face the other way. And I think that's about all you need to remember for the assignment. So stay tuned because that's coming up next.